Hey class, decided I'd make a video for you like I was talking about for week 3 to kind of go over some of the information about strings. I know that there was a lot that was covered this week, and so I wanted to make sure that just kind of gave a quick overview and hopefully covered some of the things that maybe you might have been confused about. The first thing that we talked about this week were strings, and so as you know, we have a few ways that we can define a string. So we're just going to go ahead and say my name is Brother Dewey. And now we have a string that's defined. Again, variables are the best way to store information. So we wanted to go ahead and create those for basic storage. And the first thing we wanted to talk about again is proper formatting. So it's important that we always match double quotes with double quotes, single quotes with single quotes, because otherwise, if we did something like this, and we closed it with a double quote, it may seem like it's okay, but the problem is when we go to run it, it'll give us an error saying, hey, I don't quite know what happened here. You tried to put a single quote in here and you didn't close it. And I'll show you what happens is if we do this and we do close it with a double quote in there, and just ignore what's going on my screen there, but if we go ahead and try to run this now, I gotta actually print that out, don't I? My other name. So you'll see what happens here is if you get those wrong and you do end up closing it, is you get that double quote right inside the string. And that's probably not what we intended to do. One of the other things you might run into is if we do this, a premature closing of a single quote. Now there's two ways to solve this. The first one is to do something called escaping. Now when we escape a character, we use the backslash. And what that does is it says, I literally want this to be inside my string as this character. I don't want you to look at this and say that it's closing it. I just want you to see it as that variable. So this is the first way we can do that. So if you go ahead and run this again, you can see that junior high schools. So I don't know what the junior high school owns, but it's something, clearly. And so the other way that we can solve this is by swapping out for double quotes. And so now, if we run this again, you'll notice it does the same thing, but it's a little bit easier to read. So you just kind of have to think about what sort of characters you're going to be putting in the string, so you can know if you need to escape those characters or cancel them out, or if you need to swap the different type of string. So if it's, again, single quote, whatever, it should be fine. The only time that you don't have to worry about that is when you do a multi-line string. Multi-line strings are fantastic when you have a lot of data, but you don't want to have to try to break that across in multiple lines, because that can get really tricky when you're doing something like this, which is valid, but it's just a little bit weird, and you'll notice it says, hey, you get a syntax error on the indentation. But if we try this, I believe it should work. Oh, that's right, it's Python 2. I apologize, this is a Python 3 thing that you don't have to do that, but okay, now it gets a little bit difficult to see what you're trying to get across. And so if you can see here, it did make the string, but it's just really weird. And the formatting's not quite the way that you want it, so on and so forth. So maybe the best way we could do that is with a multi-line string. So you do that by either using 3 double quotes, closing with 3 double quotes again. Football team was here. Now, if we come down here and run it again, you'll notice that it is exactly the way that we put it inside the string. The other thing that's really nice is that you can, in here, use doubles, you can use singles. It doesn't matter where they're at. It just says, until you find another triple set of quotes, anything inside of it is a string. So we can go like this, and as you can see, football is now, and it makes it a little bit easier when you have, again, lots of data that you want to put out, but you don't want to have to worry about getting things lined up perfect. You just need to get all of that data in one spot. Okay, so that leads us to a very important next topic, and something that I mentioned in the previous video, and I'll mention it again here. Go ahead and make this a single one again, is that strings are lists of characters. And what I mean by that is that a string actually takes a character, which is just one character like that, and a string says, okay, we've got a list of these. And again, a list just meaning, a list of different things. So you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and all the way across to the very end. Lists are super helpful, especially when you're trying to look at particular data. Now this is really helpful because maybe I just want to look at the first character of the entire string. We can do that. In Python, they do it a little bit differently than you might think. The first one is actually 0, not 1. And it's called zero index, zero-based indexing. And that's really useful because, again, if we want to print that one thing, you can see that I'm now just printing the letter J. That's 0. You can even do things like this. Oops. And say, okay, I want 0 to 5. And what that will do is print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Starting at 0, going to 5. So in this case, it would be the 5th character, which is index 4. It's a little bit complicated, but it does make sense. And so what this looks like to the program is this. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And we're going to separate this out just a little bit, just for the sake of being able to see it here. How about I do this instead? Alright, so we've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the space, 7, 8, 9, 10 is the H, 11 is the S, 12 is the C, 13 is the H, 14 is the O, 15 is the O again, and then 16 is this, and 17 is the S. So hopefully this helps you to see a little bit of what would happen here. So if I wanted to print character 17, what do you think it'll be? Well, let's take a look and see. It's the S in high school, it's the very end. So, again, this is really useful when you get something and you only need to see part of it. And so this allows you to go over individual pieces and look at them. The other thing that is really important to know about strings is that you can check out different data. So strings actually have some functions that we talked about in the previous video that you can access off of the string. So if I went here and I said, oh, look at this, we've got all kinds of different functions. But the ones that we're going to focus on right now are lower, if I can get my thing to work here, sorry, lower. And what do you think lower will do? Let's take a look here. So lower is supposed to, if you read the documentation up here in this top thing, return a capitalized version of the string. Well, this is actually another thing. Or lower to lower. So here, if we run this and we see we're executing lower, junior high schools is now all completely lowercased. We can do the same thing with upper. And now you can see that the next line is entirely uppercase characters. And that's really useful. And then sometimes, I just want to know how long it is. How long is this thing? So you say, what is the len? And I believe actually you do it this way. So len, my other name. And when you do it this way, you can see that it is 18 characters, including the space. So that tells you how long the string is, and that's also extremely useful. Okay, so we also, there are, again, a number of different functions that are available for strings. You can capitalize them, you can case fold, you can center, get indexes, you can check and see, is it a digit? Is it a decimal? Is it in lowercase? Is it in uppercase? You can join to another string. And a lot of these you can learn about by going and researching on the Python website. But there again, there are a lot of really helpful tools to help you make your application behave the way that you want it to behave. And it's really useful because sometimes you just need that functionality. It's part of what we call a library. It's the string library, and these functions are helpful so that you don't have to write these things by yourself. Okay, lastly about strings, we want to talk about string formatting. String formatting is a way that helps make our program look a little prettier than normal. And the nice thing about formatting is that it allows us to specify where we want a variable to be in a string. Otherwise, you might run into weird errors like, oh, I expected an integer, or I expected a string and you gave me an integer. Well, it didn't want to print it properly, so it gives you a problem. This allows you to format it in a way that makes sense. So just like last time, if we go here and we say, my age is equal to 50, my name is equal to Brother Dewey. I'm not actually 50, but you know. And then we come in here and we say, my shoe size is equal to 10.5, and yeah, we'll just go with that for now. So in here we could say, okay, your name is, and then %s provides you with, I want a string right here. So you can specify string. Your age is %d or %i, both will let you put in an integer, meaning a number that does not have a decimal point at all. We're going to use d because that's the one that I'm familiar with. And your shoe size is %f. Now %f is a floating point variable, meaning it has a decimal point. So if we come in here and we try to run this, you'll see, oh, great, that looks great. We're going to print those out exactly, and it's because I forgot to specify with % what those variables are supposed to be. So I'm going to go ahead now and put in my name, my age, and my shoe size. And when I come down here again and run it, now that I have the % on there, this % says, now take anywhere there's a % and treat it specially. And now you can see that your name is, insert my name, your age is, insert my age, and your shoe size is, insert my shoe size. Well, I don't really like the way that my shoe size looks. It's got all those trailing zeros. That's just really weird. Well, Python has thought about that as well. So with this, you can specify how you want this to look. So here you can say, okay, well, I've got this thing, but I only want to show a decimal of 2. So you put 0.2, and it says I want 2 things following that. So I'll come down here again, and run it again, and you'll notice, oh look, now it's at 0.50. Or I could even do something like this and specify, I want this to be 1. And now it's 0.5. Lastly, you can, if you would like to, actually put 0.0, and this then will behave similarly to %d. I only want to see the beginning part of it. And what it will do is it will do what's called truncating, which says anything past the decimal, throw it away. Don't round up, don't round down, just go back to whatever the number is. And so that's really helpful. Well, sometimes we want to do things like zero fill. So I can go like this, and let's see what happens now. Oh, looks like 50. And what if I do 0, 0 like that? Still 50. Well, that is because D, for whatever reason, doesn't show decimals. So if I went here and I said, okay, 3D, what do you think will happen? Oh, interesting. The decimal then says, you mean that you want it to have this many spaces for the decimal. And it zero fills on either direction. I want this space to be exactly 3 characters wide. So if I came up here and said, instead of my age, I put in the number 5, you could see that it is now 005. Now, the nice thing is that Python has really good documentation about all of these things. If you're ever curious, you can always just Google string formatting for Python, and it will provide you a way to look at these things. Alright, so lastly what I wanted to cover is libraries. Libraries, as we kind of played with a little bit with strings, provide us with some functionality that's really just nice to have overall. Some things that we don't want to have to play with too much more. We don't want to have to write every single time. And some things are pretty complicated, like a date. So they've got a really nice thing. It's called datetime. Import datetime. Datetime will help us keep track of what time it is. And it'll help us keep track of it a lot better than trying to manage it ourselves. So if I say right now is equal to datetime dot now, it's a function, and I print that, you'll see that right now, and this is really cool because it breaks it down: year, month, day, hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds. And it really provides us a very accurate moment in time. And just like off of string, maybe I only want to see, let's just look at the day. The day is 5, and it's only 5, so it's the 5th day. We know that. And maybe I just want to look at right now, and we're going to look at, let's look at the weekday. That's a good one to do. And, oh, give me just a second, I have a weekday. Weekday is 1, because today, if you go based off of that, 0, 1, because today's the 5th, and it's Tuesday. Now Python, with weekday, and this is probably important to explain, you have Sunday, which is 0, Monday, which is 1, or sorry, excuse me, Sunday, which is 7, Monday, which is 1, or 0, Tuesday, which is 1, Wednesday, which is 2, Thursday, which is 3, Friday, which is 4, Saturday, which is 6, and Sunday, which is 7. And so, as you can see, there's a numerical representation for each day. So if you want the weekday in numerical form, as you can see down here, it is 1, which is Monday, or Tuesday, excuse me, because again, 0 index. And this is really helpful because sometimes you want to keep track of where I need to go to get back to Sunday or Monday or Thursday or wherever I'm trying to get to. And again, it's really nice because they have this thing. And so there's this portion of the common library called datetime, and this is a module. And from that module, there's a program or a file called datetime.py. And in there they have this function now, and they have this function weekday, and they have this entire library of things that you can look at, which are really nice. And so it's really great. There are a lot of things. There's datetime, there's almost a library for anything you can think of, shapes, colors, and it's really helpful because it helps get you into programming things without you having to worry so much about covering all of the little details. Anyway, I hope that this has been helpful as well. Let me know if there's any way that I can help make this any more clear for you. And again, keep up the great work. You're doing well. Hopefully this helps you guys in preparation for the assignments that you have this week.